In this video, we'll delve into the truth behind Tesla's performance after driving 100,000, 400,000, or even 1 million miles. Does the car hold up? What components might need replacement? We'll examine numerous examples and debunk some myths while discussing the facts surrounding EV longevity. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. Vehicle lifespan. When it comes to vehicle lifespan, Consumer Reports indicates that the average new vehicle lasts around 8 years or 150,000 miles. However, some well-maintained vehicles can reach 15 years and 300,000 miles. However, electric vehicles or EVs have fewer moving parts, require less maintenance, and can last longer. The U.S. Department of Energy highlights that all electric vehicles typically need minimal maintenance due to the battery, motor, and electronics requiring little to no regular upkeep. With fewer fluids to maintain, reduced brake wear from regenerative braking, and fewer moving parts than conventional engines, EVs offer cost-effective maintenance and long-term durability, challenging the misconception that the battery diminishes its longevity. Battery failure. Battery failure concerns often arise with the assumption of facing a costly $20,000 repair. However, Tesla provides generous battery warranties, aligning with or even exceeding the average vehicle lifespan. While battery failures can occur, they are not a regular requirement for replacement. Modern EV batteries can last well beyond 10 years, with Tesla's batteries designed to last between 300,000 and 500,000 miles. The general guideline for replacement is when the battery has lost around 30% of its original capacity, which could take 15 to 30 years of usage. Tesla's impact report confirms the durability and longevity of their batteries, further dispelling battery replacement concerns. Battery retention. Tesla vehicles demonstrate strong battery retention even after traveling significant distances, with retention rates in the mid to high 80% range after 200,000 miles. Tesla's battery packs are designed to outlast the vehicles, and there are aspirations to develop batteries that can last up to 1 million miles. The Model 3 drive system is validated for over 1 million miles. Elon Musk has stated that the drive unit and body are designed for a 1,000,000-mile life. While these claims originate from Tesla, independent third-party data and user experiences are crucial in validating their durability. Third-party data. An independent study conducted by 286 Tesla Model S owners worldwide provided data on a Model S after 50,000 miles, approximately 100,000 kilometers. The study found that most Model S battery packs experienced a 5% capacity loss at the 50,000 mile mark. Still, the rate of capacity loss slowed down after that. According to the data, the battery would take an additional 150,000 miles or 200,000 miles to approach 90% capacity. Although this data appears more favorable than Tesla's official figures, it's important to note that the sample size is smaller. Longevity and minimal repairs. In 2019, a Tesla Model 3 owner became the first to reach 100,000 miles and shared his experience. He stated that aside from routine tire replacements, averaging 25,000 miles per set, the only major repair he needed was replacing a control arm due to driving through a valley stream and a shattered piece inside the hinge caused by strong winds on the Bonneville Salt Flats. He spent approximately $500 on those repairs, and after 100,000 miles, his Model 3 had a 2.5 capacity loss compared to its original 310-mile rating. Considering that a battery would typically require replacement after reaching a 30% capacity loss, it is unlikely that he will ever reach that point. Impressive mileage and affordable maintenance. Multiple Tesla Model 3 owners have surpassed the 100,000-mile mark, showcasing the longevity and durability of these vehicles. Their experiences highlight minimal maintenance costs, with routine tire replacements being the most significant expense. Battery degradation remains minimal, with only 2.2% reduction in range after 4 years of usage. Moreover, the Model S has achieved an incredible milestone of 400,000 miles driven, a testament to Tesla's exceptional engineering. These real-world examples demonstrate that Tesla cars can accumulate high mileage and affordable maintenance and sustained performance. Tesloop's Tesla Model S journey to 400,000 miles. Tesloop's Tesla Model S, a 90D variant, achieved a remarkable 400,000 miles with a combined maintenance cost of approximately $19,000. While experiencing 2 battery replacements, the first occurred at 194,000 miles with only a 6% degradation. However, the intensive charging pattern used by Tesloop, involving regular supercharging from low to 100%, led to an internal imbalance in the high-voltage battery. Nonetheless, the Model S showcased impressive longevity and durability. In 2020, Tesloop's Tesla Model X also reached the milestone of 400,000 miles, further highlighting the exceptional performance of Tesla vehicles. Tesla Model X, durability and costly repairs. Throughout the extensive 400,000-mile journey of Tesloop's Tesla Model X, they faced significant repair costs totaling $29,000. While this may appear high, it is crucial to consider that achieving such mileage typically takes around 20 years. Some of the notable repairs included $9,000 for tire replacements, with a total of 42 tires used during the 400,000 miles. Furthermore, they had a middle seat replacement at 230,000 miles, costing $5,375.90, and a touchscreen replacement at 373,000 miles, amounting to $3,389.83. Although these repairs may seem frustrating and expensive, it's important to note that reaching such high mileage is rare. The Model X is a complex vehicle, likely requiring more repairs over its lifetime than the Model 3 or Model Y. The promise of Model 3 and Model Y. The utilization of newer and optimized battery cells in the Model 3 and Model Y, along with improved motor design, suggests that the longevity of these vehicles should be even more impressive. As Model 3 and Model Y owners accumulate mileage in the coming years, we will witness how these vehicles perform at 200,000, 400,000, and even 1 million miles, as well as the associated costs. Overall, the ownership costs of these electric vehicles are expected to be significantly lower than those of gas-powered vehicles, resulting in substantial savings. While charging habits can impact battery longevity, as demonstrated by Tesloop's experience with regular supercharging to 100%, it is evident that EVs offer tremendous savings potential. Furthermore, Tesla strongly emphasizes battery recycling, as highlighted in their 2021 Impact Report, dispelling concerns about environmental impact. And that completes our video for today. We hope you enjoyed learning the incredible updates of Tesla. Which of them are you most excited about? Tell us in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to TechBros for more content such as this.